Today, we're diving into a conversation that's raw, real, and oh so important, releasing the shame around self-pleasure. We've been taught to push pleasure to the sidelines, to treat it as an afterthought, a luxury. But what if pleasure isn't just the icing on the cake? What if it's a tool that can transform childbirth? Hi, I'm Debra Pascali-Bonaro, founder and director of OrgasmicBirth and host of the OrgasmicBirth podcast. Joining me today is the incredible MJ Renshaw, a mama, the founder of the Being Method, and a lover of all things energy, embodiment, and even rock collecting. After experiencing the transformative power of birth, she realized just how deeply pleasure is woven into every part of life, how it helped her to trust her body, her voice, and her partners in new ways. Join me in welcoming MJ. It's such an honor to have you with us today to share your story, your wisdom, and help us release shame and reconnect with ourselves and embrace pleasure. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's also an honor for me.
Well, I have the benefit of reading kind of some of your story already, but for our listeners, can you take us back to kind of being pregnant and what were some of your feelings, thoughts? How did you prepare for birth to bring you into a more pleasurable space?
So we did your course and watched your documentary before my daughter was born, my firstborn. And that birth, taught me a lot of things. It did not go as planned, as they often don't. But very shortly after my contractions started with her, I started like violently throwing up and kept violently throwing up for about 12 hours until I went to the hospital. And then, the snowball kind of goes and then epidural and that. And I love that birth story. It's not a story of failure for me. I lost my dad to opiates. And I remember getting the epidural and looking at my husband and saying, I get him now. Like I was meant to have this experience of having an epidural so I could know what was that thing he was chasing to alleviate his pain. I feel like it was just such a cosmic, beautiful birth story of like feeling the failure and feeling the pain and getting that experience of understanding how my dad was, trying to support himself through his own trauma. And that was a great experience. But the nugget I got from that birth was the puking piece. And everybody kept saying, oh, it was just the pain. But I kept saying, I wasn't in that much pain. I was at home. I was watching A Little Princess, the Disney movie. And I wasn't really in that much pain, but my body was reacting to it. And I had this intuition that it was old trauma and that I wasn't comfortable being embodied in kind of my womb and in my pelvis. And I feel like for some people that would sound way too woo-woo, but I think for this community, they might get it. And I had dealt with sexual abuse when I was a child, and I had a feeling like there was something there. So we redid your course because we got pregnant immediately right away again. And we redid your course. We rewatched the documentary. And I remember saying to my husband, like, I feel like pleasure here is going to be like a healing portal for me for this pregnancy. Like I think I need to worry about less about holding ice cubes in my hand and getting combs and trying to like outpain my pain. I feel like I need to go deeper into this idea of being in my body and being in this state of openness and acceptance and surrender and pleasure. And it's so interesting, fast forward to when I was, having contractions with my son. If I clenched my fist, I would feel more pain. And if I opened my hand in a kind of like a symbol of surrender, the pain alleviated, Did I have an orgasmic birth with him? I did not. I told everyone I was going to, and they were all like, so did you orgasm? And I was like, I did not. But I think of it kind of like kind of like sex, where it's like the goal is not an orgasm. They are amazing. We love orgasms. I love orgasms.
Yes.
But to have an intimate, pleasurable experience is just as good. And can I say that that birth was an intimate, pleasurable experience? Yes. So I had to create the environment. And, I thought, what is going to make my nervous system feel the most safe? Step one, my husband had to do a lot of homework. I was like, I need you to be like the daddy doula, the best daddy doula you can ever be. He didn't read any books about it. And so obviously having him more informed, he prepared everything, like any plastic sheet, anything that we need for the birth, he was in charge of that. And we, you know, the birth story is that I started having contractions when we were at the beach, and it just turned into this really beautiful experience at home. We always wanted a home birth, and we didn't have that with my daughter. I did the majority of everything by myself. I wanted to be alone. I went to we have a basement bathroom that's just so beautiful. I was in the bath the whole time alone. I was using self-pleasure just to kind of like help my body enter this place of safety. Like, you're not going to feel aroused and open if you don't feel safe. So for me as a nervous system person, I'm going into like, where do I feel safe? What makes me feel safe? Who makes me feel safe? And what can I do to cultivate safety? Because I know if my body feels safe, it's not going to have these reactions of like throwing up constantly. um, or feeling more pain. We know that like pain is something that can be subjective to people. There's different, people have different types of pain. You know this more than I do, but also it could be the way you think about it. The way you think about an event can make it painful or less painful. So those were kind of the things that I was focusing on with this birth, and just really trying to orchestrate it as if it was a sexual experience, right? Like, if I'm going to be intimate with my husband, I'm not thinking, okay, now let's bring in a couple strangers and turn all the lights really, really bright. And I want to wear something very uncomfortable. You want it to be yours. And like, everybody's so unique. I have some friends that want to wear a latex suit in those environments. So like, their birth experience is probably going to be different than mine. For me, we had a water birth that made me, I loved being in the water. I love baths. I bath every day. So I wanted to be like by the window so that I could see outside. I love nature, and just thinking of it in a nervous system way of being like, how can I make this the most fun? How can I make this the most easeful or the most pleasurable? So did I experience pain? Yes. Um, did I have an orgasm? No, but those weren't the goals. The goals were to create a transformative and intimate birth, which is what we definitely had.
That sounds so beautiful. And what a difference. I just want to honor your lessons, your deep acknowledgement of your father, your healing, both of that as well as your first birth, really helping you to heal even your own past trauma. And these are so important. We don't often talk about birth in the realm of healing, but that opportunity is so there. And then to kind of birth it forward into really creating that environment where you felt so safe, and were able to access self-pleasure and really enjoy that. And I do want to add one thing. Orgasmic birth does not equal orgasm.
Yeah.
Orgasmic birth is a birth that, well, I always say you should define that, but for us, it's really a birth with love and connection and joy and intimacy. And it also doesn't mean there isn't pain, right? You can have pain and pleasure at all different moments and ride those many emotions. So in my mind, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, but by our definition, you really had an orgasmic birth. So
It
I'd love for you
definitely.
to think about that.
No, it definitely. I just mean to the average friend who was hearing about this for the first time, they were like, "What is it?" They're thinking, "I'm having an orgasm while I'm birthing," which some people do, and that's amazing. But for us, yes, 100%. We had an orgasmic birth. It was amazing. Our daughter was at home. She was only 20 months, so I was able to kind of come upstairs and breastfeed her, which obviously really helped with the contractions and just be with her and snuggle. She came into the bathtub, like into the birthing tub with me for a bit. It really was just, everything that I dreamed of in a birth. And I think the main thing that really helped that was understanding how to facilitate the environment, facilitate my mindset in a way that like this can be a good experience. I watched hundreds of YouTubes of births because it's very common, but we don't see it. It's not what's shown in the media, right? Like it's always a woman like sweating and cursing in the emergency room, which that happens, but that's not every birth. There's births happening all over the world in, really beautiful, calm environments.
Yes. So I want to take you deeper because you've also spoken about birth teaching you to release shame around pleasure, your body, and birth. And you said in something you wrote, it taught you to speak up and listen to your body rather than others and to really trust my partner and his support. Can you talk about that? What was that process like? And, releasing shame is so important for so many people. So I'd love to hear how that
Mhm.
was for you.
Yeah, I think that it's so complex. There's a lot of different programming that goes into women that can affect our birth. So we have like a lot of the good girl stuff where we want everyone else to be comfortable but us. And we're gonna, pretend like nothing's going on with us. So I had a bit of that. And then, like my husband's obviously never given birth. So I had this like, well, what do you know kind of thing. And I had to kind of switch my thinking to being like, this is an experience for both of us, and I need him. I need him. So he was so, and that he really responded to that, to being like respected in that role of, I'm here. I'm the person you're leaning on. We are going to do this together because we now knew that oxytocin was going to be the hormone that's going to help us through this. And we can create that together by, having intimacy during this entire process. So he was very involved. I think he's, left me for a little while to make spaghetti for everybody who was there, our midwives and the doula. But mostly I just wanted to be alone. I had to really learn how to set boundaries. Our second midwife came in and she was being quite loud. And I was like, you have to go tell her to be quiet. You have to tell them to shut off the lights. You have to tell them that they can't come in the room. A lot of ordering people around despite they had the birth plan, they knew quiet, dark, but it's routine for them. They maybe hadn't read it. I'm not sure, but and everybody's not going to care. So you have to really be like, no. um, in the tub, people were really suggesting like you should get up and walk, but I really felt like my body was doing what it needed to do. And I was saying, no, I'm not going to get out and walk. This is where I want to be. This is what feels good for me. You might be on a time crunch, but I'm not. And sorry. um, and that was kind of, I think those were really, there's such good moments to kind of step into healing, but it's not easy because we are so programmed to think that. I did use self-pleasure during my contractions closer to the end when things were getting pretty painful in the tub. And, I'm doing that in front of a doula. I'm doing that in front of a midwife. And that's like, if someone said to me, you're going to essentially masturbate in front of people, I would be like, no, the heck I'm not. But I did. And they were kind of looking and being like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm touching myself. um, and I just didn't, I mean, there's this level of I don't care that happens when you're giving birth. If anyone's listening has done it before, you're just like boobs out, just you're just doing what you need to do. But yeah, it is really liberating in that way to be like, okay, what were my blocks with my first birth? I wasn't speaking up for myself. I wasn't asking people for what I needed. I was trying to appease everybody else in their comfort. Whereas like I needed to be the main character of that moment. I'm the main character. I'm the birthing woman. And I needed everybody else to be there for me. And I'm going to ask for what I need. And I had to really put that into my brain of being like, they're here for me. I'm going to ask for what I need, and I'm going to tell them that I don't want that or this. And um, yeah, it was a really good, profound healing experience for me. And I got a really cute baby out of it. So yeah,
Well, it sounds so beautiful. And I really appreciate, you're being vulnerable and bold to talk about self-pleasure because I think more people do, but a lot of people haven't considered the role that it plays in birth. How did you come to the idea that you would use self-pleasure? Was it thought ahead or just in the middle of labor? And how did it feel?
it was a thought ahead. So a bunch of the videos I'd watched, people were packing their vibrators and in their birth bags. I don't have one, so I was just using, I'm an analog girl, just using my hand. And I mean, it makes sense because you read the birth books like Ina Maskin, Gaskin, Ina May Gaskin.
Ina May
Um,
Gaskin,
Ina
yes.
May Gaskin. Thank you. Um, the energy that gets the baby in gets the baby out. It makes sense to me. Like if you want to feel open down there and prepared, it makes sense that you would do that. That's what I would do during sex. So I definitely helped. Like I had to have an episiotomy with my daughter, whereas with my son, they were pretty much the same weight. I mean, I was in different positions without an epidural. There's a lot of different factors, but he came out just fine. I barely felt it. I didn't even have any like burning sensation. It just the head and then a couple breaths and then the body. And it was a very, very, very different experience because, everybody, not everybody, but I'm sure people have had the experience of maybe trying to have sex where you're really stressed out and your mind's not in it and you're thinking about your to-do list and your vagina is just like, nope. I am closed right now. Whereas when you're kind of in your body and you're relaxed and you feel really safe, it's a very different experience. And like, if you're trying to put something in or out, like, I would obviously choose the latter one where my vagina was more open.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And can I ask you this? Because the question people often ask is, do you feel it reduced discomfort or pain? Was there a
100%.
difference?
100%. I mean, it's hard to tell. I had an epidural. So that one obviously was not that painful, but um, I would say that with each contraction, I noticed differences. So they had me get up and go to the bathroom at one point in time. And that's where, my contractions got more intense. And like if someone entered the room, it would feel more painful than if they weren't in the room. Or if I had, like I said, if I had my hands and I tried to use the combs, that made it more painful for me. Because for me, I noticed if I could signal safety to my body, I'm safe to give birth, I'm safe to be here right now. There's no one here who's a stranger. There's no one here that I've only met 5 times, If I could signal that safety to myself, turn the lights down low, get nice music going, the pain lessened greatly. So the more I focused on creating a pleasurable experience, connection with my husband, someone that I trusted, a pleasurable environment. Like I had like rose water mist. I like really was like I set up like a little spa for myself. Like all my favorite things were there. And it really did lessen the pain.
I love that. I like the whole spa idea. I can feel that. And that's pleasure too, right? Pleasure comes in all different forms, from the environment to what we see and hear and smell and taste and touch. So for someone who's listening, and especially on self-pleasure, is just feeling a little shame and like, how can I do that? Do you have any advice for them? Because you even said, your midwife was there, your doula, obviously your partner. What would you say to them?
That's a very good question. I would just say that your experience in birth is more important than someone else's judgments. And the thing, I always thought of it as like I'm birthing with this baby. Like I'm not birthing the baby. They're obviously doing their own little maneuvers to get out and they want to get out. So it's also, I always think of it, this might be something that someone wouldn't want to hear. So if you don't like it, that's okay. But if you do like it, take it. I thought of it as a duty to my children. like this anyone who's gone through the process of becoming a mother is like these healings, like healing the wounds of being seen or healing the wounds of being a woman who prioritizes her pleasure, all that heals your children and your lineage. So when I kind of zone out and think of it as a bigger picture thing, like if I can heal my generational trauma around sexual abuse or being a woman who prioritizes her pleasure, those are radical things. And that helps my daughter. That helps my son. So for me, like I always zoom out and think like this is bigger than just me. This is bigger than, a midwife who I might say again, might see again, might not. But they see all, and I would also just say they've probably seen it all. Don't worry. I've definitely heard of enough women now using vibrators during birth to know that it's probably pretty common. And maybe people don't talk about it, but it works well.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, thank you. And I love that approach too. I agree that we have a lot of healing that we do both for the generations before. And I love how you talk about for your own children and the generations going forward. That was really beautiful, MJ. And can I ask how your partner felt? Like people often think like, how is my partner going to feel if I'm bringing this pleasure in?
He's very supportive. He's very supportive in my pleasure. I always say he loves anything that lights me up. So if it makes me happy, he is down. He's happy.
And that's great to hear because I think for some people, it's not only your midwife and doula, it's,
Of course, yeah.
how is our partner feeling? And so I know a lot of times when I talk with people that have had a lot of pleasure in pregnancy, brought that into birth, that it impacts their postpartum as well. Do you feel that there was any different approach into postpartum and your relationship and intimacy after this birth?
That is a very interesting thing. I never thought about that. So I did not have the experience after my first of losing my libido at all. Like after the 6 weeks, I was like, I think we had sex at 5 weeks. I was like,
Good.
because I was just, I don't know what happened. I think it was all the oxytocin. I'd never been more like attracted to my husband. But uh, I will just say after we had a second and I had literally no sleep, I did lose my libido a little bit, but we have definitely maintained our intimacy throughout two under two, which we're proud of because you have to get very creative. But yes, I've never had the experience of having a different postpartum, but I would say that I was surprised at how my husband and I were able to really ride that oxytocin and ride that intimacy that we had created in pregnancy and in birth
Yeah.
together. And I think the teamwork element of the birth was really helpful for him as feeling like stepping into the father role. We have such a big rite of passage, whereas fathers, it's a little bit more of a gray area. And I think for him being such a helper and being such a teammate during that was really helpful for stepping into the father role.
That's beautiful. And as we're coming to the end, like, is there one more piece of advice that you'd like to give to someone to release shame and embrace pleasure in all aspects of their life and to bring that into birth?
That's a good question. I would say one thing that I did before even getting pregnant, just to help bring my awareness into my body and create reverence for my body, was just a really simple practice of oil massages. It doesn't have to be like expensive or anything, but you can buy expensive yoni massage oils if you want, but you can just use jojoba oil. But just being consciously aware of it for 5 minutes when you're doing your body moisturizing after the shower and just massage your vulva, massage your thighs, massage your tummy and your breasts, and really like think loving affirmations while doing it. I definitely, because I had sexual abuse when I was younger, I had a lot of shame around my body, a lot of discomfort, a lot of fear of being seen. I struggled to have sex for a long time. So I had deep healing work to do there. And that was one piece that helped me so much, was just bringing my awareness there, bringing my consciousness back into my body, back into my womb space, back into my vulva and my yoni, and just healing it, just saying like, you're safe now. It's okay. Like, I'm here. You're beautiful. You're radiant. I love you. Thank you. And I think that practice really, really transformed the shame. And I know it's really common for people, and we've seen this in studies too, where, we will dissociate away from our bodies when we experience trauma. And it even we'll see it in kind of like nerve pathways, they won't be as strong. Like, so where our conscious awareness is not even there as much as it used to be. And you can rebuild that. You can heal that. You can come back into your body where you can feel connected to your womb again and connected to your vulva again and be able to really be in the conscious awareness of pleasure in that area. And it's an important part of life, like orgasms, intimacy, being into your own body. It's a very important part of life, physically, but also spiritually, I think. So my advice would be to take small moments to really, it doesn't have to be elaborate, but to really create a little ritual of pleasure for yourself. Like, eat a chocolate and then massage your breasts and massage your tummy. And then that's it. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but just telling your body, I'm here and I appreciate you and I love you. It's just so powerful.
That was so beautiful, MJ. I can just imagine everyone that's listening is going to re-listen to those words, and you're really inspiring so many people to bring healing to themselves. And we all have some elements of healing that we need to have in our bodies, in our pleasure. But I really appreciate you sharing your journey with us and sharing your beautiful orgasmic birth. And I know many people would love to connect with you. Can you share a bit where people can find you, a bit about your offerings?
Yeah, so I'm a breathwork teacher. We've got breathwork for people who want to do breathwork. We also certify people in breathwork. That's the bread and butter of what I do. Breathwork's also amazing for birth. I used it a lot in my birth. And you can find me. Our Instagram is our most popular place, so it's at Being Method Breathwork.
Thank you so much, MG. It was truly an absolute pleasure to be here with you today, to really hear and hold your story. And for everyone that's listening, we always love your feedback. So we hope that you'll share anything that you're taking away from MJ's story, reach out to her as well. And we'd love to hear from you too. Thank you again so
Thank
much.
Thank you for having me.